V-Rising, only out for 2 months, has hit the point that every new game, especially every new online multiplayer game, goes through. The inevitable, "is this game dead?" conversation. I dreaded it coming, I knew it would. I have dealt with this a few times now, and for whatever reason, gamers seethe at the mouth to announce that a game is dead nowadays. I've been asked to share my thoughts on this, and so here we are. Let's talk and answer the question, is V-Rising dead? When looking at games like this, I think it's important to look at two specific metrics to determine if the game is dead. The first is the game's overall population, and the second is how individual servers are doing. The reason why I look at the latter is that the general population does not matter as much if individual servers are doing well and the remaining player base is able to enjoy the game. However, if individual servers are dead and none are peaking, well, for a game like this, the overall population will suffer. More on that when I talk about individual servers. First, general population. It's no lie that the V-Rising game population has gone down some since launch. On May 21st, 4 days after early access release, the game peaked at a total of 150,000 players. As of making this video in mid-July, the 24-hour peak has been around 15,000. Now, I don't think looking at peak numbers is the most important metric. Over 2 million vampires have played V-Rising. Obviously, there will be those that did not enjoy it and quit, but that's still a huge population to be pulling into the game, whether they are actively playing still or need to be brought back with more updates. While others may be calling the game dead and time to move on, by no means do I think it's time for that, nor do I think the game's player base should be alarmed. The game is in early access. It had an incredibly successful launch for an early access indie game, and clearly has more to come. And with survival games like this, they live and die off of content updates. When a new content update comes out, the player base surges and then slowly dwindles down until another update. Now, if Stunlock doesn't produce any more content updates, then yeah, ready the casket for this vampire game, as it'll die. But I don't foresee that happening, and you shouldn't either, so we can just drop that narrative. Focusing more on server populations, I'm sure the loss of the general player base has affected servers' ability to stay stable, but I think the core issue revolves around the player base itself and how the game runs now, not with the size of the player base as a whole. Server populations are what I worry about when discussing this. I'm going to preface this right away. I do not think individual server populations, official or private otherwise, are dead. In the video there, game's not dead. Population is down and all, but that's to be expected with these types of games. However, I think servers feel doomed to fail. Thus, they have the issue of dying quickly, which in return burns players out and loses more players over time than the game should. What do I mean by are servers doomed to fail? Fail is a pretty harsh word. Maybe too harsh for what I'm talking about, but still I think it's important. In my opinion, a server that succeeds and doesn't fail means it has an active, happy player base for more than a week. Now, I think it's pretty sad that a week is the minimum in this, and I wish it wasn't how I viewed success. But so many servers die quickly. They'll last a few days, then die fast. Valhalla Rising is really the only server to break the mold. Even though they have similar percentage of player drops over days, they just have a higher count originally joining a server that helps it last a bit longer. So a failed server, in my opinion, are the majority of servers that die after a couple days, which can be very disheartening for players who can't commit to this game as a job and can hardly progress before a server is dead. And this issue has led to a disparity in the player base for casual and intense gamers that I think is one of the factors that is hurting the player population. But that's a topic I can discuss in another video. I think there are two defining factors in why servers are dying so fast. The first is in relation to players, and the second the game. In terms of players, there's definitely an anecdotal feeling that players like the initial rush of the game. They want a lot of action early on to progress and fight through. Once you get to the Iron Age, the game spreads out more, the grind slows down a bit, and PvP action lessens. Thus, players themselves dip out on the game instead of playing through for the late game content. Which is fair because, on the note of the game causing servers to die fast, there just isn't enough content late game to give purpose for that late grind. Why would anyone want to drop a ton of hours grinding to 81 and then feel like they have nothing to do but raid a few times and dip? Now, This critique of the game, while fair, is also unfair. Why? Because it's early access. We are 2 months into release, and so much more content has already been confirmed, teased, and pulled from the developers that we know long term the game will be fixed. However, time is something to be wary of. Gamers nowadays are not patient. They want content and they want it now. If not, they move on and don't look back half the time. Look at Valheim. If you ask anyone who has played the game if they liked it, I imagine you get a 99% positive response rate. However, if you ask them if they're happy with the game or still play it, you get that same 99% saying they don't touch it anymore. It's almost nostalgic to them despite it only coming out last year. Why? The developers didn't do anything with the game. To sum this all up, no, I don't think V Rising is dead. Sure, there's been concern. Trust me, I went through it with New World's population drop, and while I have Copium, this is definitely different. This game has potential. It's clearly working towards more, and we just have to be patient. Hopefully the game's population as a whole steadies a bit more, and hopefully both the players and developers can team up to help with servers dying too quickly so that burnout doesn't lose more players. End of the day, it's early access, so let's just wait and see.